right, and it looks like we are live. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to our May Listening Club, where we listened to Billie Eilish's album "When We All Fall Asleep." Where do we go? A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Um, this is only one of three different multimedia clubs that we have at the Dragonfly Arts Collective. Is that how we're saying it now? I've always feel like I say it as like a full sentence, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm giving us the proper title.
Yeah, that works
All
just
right.
fine.
We have two monthly clubs, this listening club where we listen to an album and then get together and discuss it. And we also have a monthly movie club where, we watch a movie and discuss it. We actually had our movie club this past Monday night. We watched The Red Shoes, which is a fantastic movie, and we had a great discussion, and you can actually find it online. We also have a quarterly book club. The next time we're meeting is actually going to be the end of July. We're reading Werner Herzog's most recent memoir. I think it's just his most recent. I think he has other ones, but I'm not entirely sure. So if you would like to join us for our book club, let us know. You have a couple of months to pick up the book and read it. We announce our picks on the first of every month, and those will be found in our Facebook group. We don't just do these clubs for the Facebook group. We also have feedback calls. We have live meetups. It's a community of artists. So artists supporting artists, you can go there and show your work or look for opportunities. If you have questions, a lot of time there's somebody on there that specializes in it and will give you the answers. It's a pretty great community. So you can find us there. And if you like what we do and you would like to support us, you can find us on Patreon. Currently, everything we offer is free. So if you join us on Patreon, it would just be to help support us and help us in the future to get more live meetings and more events going on. So we would appreciate it. And you can support us for as little as $2 a month. So it's not even that much. And every little bit helps.
Indeed.
If you are watching this live, I know because I can see the counter that no one's got it on yet, probably because I don't have like the events
Oh,
for
I need to
Facebook.
share it to Facebook.
I mean, it says that it's streaming.
No, it's on our page though, not in our group. So I'll
Ah,
do that really quickly.
okay. uh, if you write a comment live, we can actually see it live and respond. If you're watching it on the replay, which, like I said, I can see the little counter up there and nobody else has got it on yet. So you're probably watching this on the replay. We get notifications when you send the comments, and I believe most of the time we also get the tag for when it's happening, so we can figure out what part of the discussion you want to discuss with us. And I started these because I like talking about things. So yeah, I'm always down to talk about these picks or any of our previous picks, which again can be found on our Facebook page, or any of our future picks. And we hope that you'll be able to join us live for those. So without further ado, let's talk about Billie Eilish. I always ask, have you guys listened to this album from start to finish before?
Yes.
Never before.
Oh, wait, you mean before the monthly club?
No, I mean like in the past, like before all of this. Yeah.
Oh, no, I just whatever I caught. Oh, geez, randomly, but not the album start to finish.
And I'm assuming then everybody listened to it now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, teacher.
So I have to ask what everybody's favorite track is.
Oh. I never know what to say with that answer, so I'll let other people go.
I mean, that's fair. It's kind of a hard question. But I'm always like curious, especially when it's an album like this, which is kind of all over the place, like stylistically. or maybe that's not the correct phrase, because all of it sounds like
Yeah,
Billie
tonally, I'd
Eilish,
say it's
but
a
like,
little bit.
yeah, it's very genre bending, so it's all over the place, maybe genre wise, but it all sounds like her, just in different tones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've actually not listened to the entire album front to back before. Like I've obviously heard songs from it. I mean, I love Billie Eilish, so, but not the entire thing altogether. And it's hard to say what my favorite song is. I love Bad Guy. I love By a Friend. Might be You Should See Me in a Crown. I did do an aerial routine to that one, so I'm a little partial to it.
She is a great singer to do aerial performances too, for both like her ballads and like the more heavy music. Like
Yep.
this is what like Ariel is made for, this kind of music.
I would also say she's a great singer, flat out, period. So as a part of listening to this, I caught the feature on Vogue where she and Phineas broke down the Barbie song. And when she gets into the detail of super easy song to write, really incredibly difficult performance to capture, and she goes into the real nuances of how she deals with her voice, it's just like, I don't think I've heard any singer articulate how they work with their voice in such an interesting, and I mean it in a nice way, in a really intellectual way. And I mean, that woman at some point needs to like do a master class in singing, because she can just flat out sing, period.
Yeah. Incredible that she was like 16 when she started her career.
So what?
Yeah.
Well, wait, yeah, but how old were they when they recorded this album? Because this isn't the beginning of them, right?
No.
'Cause they got
This
some other
is
stuff.
the debut album. I think she was under 18. She was
Yeah.
17. Look, it said it right there. Yeah, she was 17 when it was released.
And how old is Phineas? How much older is he? Do we know?
I don't know, to be completely
But
honest.
when she released that first EP, which was the first thing I ever heard, because we discussed that, I think whatever album we discussed last time, I think wasn't she 15 when she put out that EP?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was a couple years before this, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was a little bit before this. I know that she initially wanted to be a dancer, and then she had an injury, but that song that her debut song, Ocean Eyes, was written as part of that for like a dance. It was written by Phineas for his band, and then he decided to give it to her. And then they decided to do it for one of her dance routines, and they put it on SoundCloud so that the dance instructor could listen to it, and it blew up overnight. And that was the start of her
Wow.
rise to fame. It was like overnight success.
That's a cool way to back into something.
Yeah. It was very much a happenstance.
Yeah. And I want to spend a fair amount of time talking about Phineas too, because he, in that same, what was the magazine I just said it was? Vanity
Vogue.
Fair.
Vanity Fair.
It was a V. I think it was Vanity Fair. I don't think Vogue does these things. He was talking about how he's driven by the emotions that come out in his music, and that is very apparent from the drop. I haven't heard anything before this album, at least I don't think I have. But like, it's not only that she's a great singer and lyricist and deliverer of songs, but he's also great in supporting the vision and creating a real interesting and how do you say, it's just a really developed backdrop to her without taking the spotlight away from her, you know? And I think of people like Johnny Greenwood in Radiohead, who are really cinematic in how they create soundscapes. And Phineas does that without it sort of competing with where the focus really ought to be in a song-based medium, which is on the singer and the lyric, you know. And he is a complete badass as well. I mean, all of these songs, you know, if it was just somebody bipping around on a drum machine and playing around in GarageBand and doing some canned, how do you say, chord changes, wouldn't be what they are without his contribution, because it's just really stunning that they're both that good, that young. I'm assuming he's only a couple years older than her and not like 10.
Yeah.
So
He's definitely still young. I don't know. This album weirds me out because it is so well done, and yet I am pretty sure that from a sound design point, these are all like Logic basic, like base level presets. Like,
oh, do you think so?
I was listening to it, and like when I was listening to the drum tracks, I was like, I feel like this is just generic Logic bass sounds. Like I think this comes with Logic.
Yeah, but you know, that doesn't, I mean, you might be right, but I never once got that idea listening to it. Like, this is
Yeah,
just,
I don't know, because the bass lines in this are so distinctive. Like when you hear Bad Guys start, like I can't think of anything else that sounds like that.
absolutely,
I have spent a
absolutely.
lot of time in Logic, and specifically for like the drum sounds, which this album is very, very minimalistic in it. It does sound like something that like came with Logic.
Yeah,
And
but
I
he's
tried to
using,
find it, and I could not find anything about what it is that he's using for it. So I am curious if somebody else would be able to do it. But
yes, but
it's
he's using the tool is not using him,
exactly
right? And it sounds like if somebody also told me, well, he spent 3 years sampling sounds before he went to make this album, I would go, yeah, that sounds right. And then somebody else said he's using presets. I'm like, well, that's amazing, but don't sound like presets.
Yeah, no, he does an amazing job. That wasn't me dissing him. It was just me like halfway through being like, wait, I know these sounds.
I mean, one of the things that I find so alluring about this album is the sound and the spaciousness in production. I love that. I love how, you know, I'll probably make comparisons to Taylor Swift a lot when I talk about this. Taylor Swift's stuff always sounds so dense. It's like they're trying to fill every open space, so all you hear is something all the time. And this is like some of these tracks, particularly, I was just listening to I Love You a couple minutes ago, and I had this image of myself walking in from the rain into a hotel bar and going into a hotel and going into the bar, and they have a piano there, and she's sitting on top of the piano singing that song as if it was like a Torch song. It was just, and all these tunes, I can hear all the sounds in them. I never have to like, oh, what's that there being covered up by something. I just find that fast. There's something when I was listening to Bad Guy, and I was like, what the hell is that sound? And I thought, oh my God, it almost sounds like Portishead. She sounds like Beth Gibbons here. And with that pumping beat behind it, it took me a while to figure out what's that beat? What's that beat? Oh my God, that's In Excess, Devil Inside. And her phrasing is very similar to what, you know, Michael Hutchence does on that. But it's so easy to just pinpoint specific sounds and figure out what it is that you're hearing because it is so open. And I love that. I find that really elegant and very different from what I hear. I don't listen to a whole lot of contemporary pop. Most of it sounds the same to me. One of the things that I love about her and her brother is it doesn't sound like anything else I've heard. And there's none of those hip hop cliches that I hear every time I walk into fucking Ralph's and they have that whatever radio station or whatever tape they have on and just it's auto tune. And then there's the quarter note triplet thing that lots of hip hop artists like to use now. And
what Ralphs are you going in? Because when I go in, it's just
the one
like,
in Sunland, they play contemporary. I guess it's contemporary top 40, and it's and it's annoying, and I hate it. And I listen to this, and this is very, and I don't mean this in a negative way. I know some people might take it in a negative way, but I find this a very easy album to listen to. And I find the EP that I listened to a couple months back, I found that very easy to listen to. And what I found fascinating about that, coming and listening to this, is how almost fully formed she is, and she and her brother are on that EP already. There's not a big leap, except maybe production-wise, between that EP and this album.
Yeah, Ocean Eyes is a great song that still stands on its own.
Yeah. Hey, so Tim, I wanted to build on that. So when somebody writes a really good song that stands the test of time, there's room for you to interpret it. It's why a lot of songwriters or lyricists don't like to talk about what their lyrics mean, because what's important to them is what you bring to it. And I think from what you might be talking about from the level of sort of like the sound design, he's kind of giving you space to fill in the gaps with your own emotions, and it's maybe an inverse of who was the this is a film reference. Who directed Paris, Texas? Ry Cooder did the soundtrack. Who was the director?
Wim Wenders.
Yes.
Yeah. So from what I understood, Ry Cooder had never done a soundtrack before, and Vim's direction to him was, "I want you to supply the emotions that is not there. That's not there in the frame visually, and it's not there in the dialogue, right?" And it's kind of some weird a version of that kind of invites you in. And if it's super dense, and I'm not super familiar with Taylor Swift, but I know exactly what you're talking about, where there's just so much stuff crammed in there. It's just like, right? And it's inviting you in by not sort of, how do you say, trying to define too much. It's leaving space, and then you can sort of dive in and, have that sort of torch song imagery. Whereas if he had overdone it or overproduced it and put too much in, it would be at a distance, at arm's length, like, I can't really, I don't know. But I think I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure I'm articulating it in any way, shape, or form that anybody understands, but he's really, really good at what he does.
I mean, I think for many people, what you just said is probably how it is. What for me, what that sound palette is it's very, very much like ambient music, which, and
Absolutely.
that's my connection to it, more than me putting anything in there. It's just leaving me space to just exist within that soundscape that they're creating.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's why I made that Johnny Greenwood reference, because he's done soundtracks, I forget what movies, and he brings that sort of cinematic soundscape vibe and skill set to Radiohead. And I think Radiohead is much the better for it, just like I think Billie Eilish is much the better for the soundscapes that Phineas creates.
When I don't know anything about her aside from the music that I've heard. So maybe Beckett or Rebecca can answer this. When she goes out live, does she go out live with a band, or is it just her and her brother?
No, it's her and her brother and a drummer, from what I've seen.
Oh, good.
That's also what I've seen, but I've never seen her perform. So
yeah, I dread the idea of her going into the studio with a larger band, because I love this sound that she has, just like this. Now she did a 007. She did a Bond movie, didn't she? Did she do that with a larger?
The last Bond movie, yeah.
Did she do that with a larger band, or did she do that just her and her brother, and very minimalist like this is?
I seem to remember there was an orchestra. I could be wrong.
Yeah, she does a lot with strings as well. Her most recent album that was only released like a week ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe, it also has a lot of strings on it. I say a lot of strings, I mean like 3 string players, like cello, violin,
and proud dad moment. I just spent the last week on vacation in Texas, and my daughter and I drove for 3 hours, and that's one of the albums we listened to all the way through. Like I'm like, hey, how about you want to listen to Billie Eilish? And I had no idea that something had just dropped. And so now her and her significant other talked all the way through it. But the fact that we were listening to that together was just a real awesome moment for me and her. Well, for me.
You
What
know,
I
the other,
really,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I really appreciate the pacing on this album, and not just like between the song placement, but also within the songs themselves. Like you were kind of mentioning, Tim, how some pop music seems very like crammed together with all the things. She and her musical counterpart are not afraid to slow down. And there are lots of moments within a lot of these songs that you just have silence for a while. And I'm like, oh, is the song over? Nope, there it goes.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that would concern me about playing with a larger band, now I haven't heard her really belt out a song. I've heard this album and I've heard that EP that I listened to a few months back, and she sings it very much in that. The thing that I love about her voice is one of the things that attracted me to Olivia Rodrigo's first single, and that's that fragility. It's and I love that. It's very in that way. It's very intimate, and it seems like she keeps that consistently through most of the songs in this album. I don't think I ever heard her really raise her voice in any way, and I would worry about that quality getting lost if she was playing with a larger, musical background.
Yeah, she definitely knows how to play to her strengths. And even like Ocean Eyes, Phineas wrote that for somebody else and then decided that it fit her best. So yeah, they definitely know how to do that. I've also never heard her belt. I don't know if she can, which she probably can. I've just never heard it.
Oh, I'm sure she can. I'm
Yeah.
certain.
I mean, she has terrific intonation, from, all the stuff that I've heard so far. So I would imagine that she could sing louder. But I find that quality of her voice very attractive, and it melds well with the musical backgrounds that her brother creates. I don't know how much of a hand she has in, do they sit down and does she say, well, I'd like a little more of this here and a little more of this there, or does she just toss the music off to him? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I also don't know. I do know that Phineas is heavily influenced by like movie scores. So that definitely has a lot to do with it. I like his use of Foley work. And I think that's also one of the things that's great about like Billie Eilish's performances is that she kind of talks in the background and like laughs. And like you can hear it. Like I think one of my favorite things about this album is that the opening track kind of sets a specific tone for the entire album, where it's this entire album full of these very heavy subject matter. The entire album was supposed to be about like nightmares and like lucid dreaming kind of things that she was dealing with at the time, mixed with like a bunch of fictional stories about like what people that they know were going through. And like it's a lot of heavy details, especially for someone like they were so young. But that opening track where it's just like her taking out her Invisalign sets a weird tone for the rest of it, where none of it's so like super serious because of that.
Yeah, it has a very endearing quality to the whole thing.
Yeah.
Another thing that I like about her, and again, making the comparison to Taylor Swift, and don't believe that I'm dissing Taylor Swift. I think she's incredibly talented, and I do like her, but I can only take her in small doses because of the density, and I can't really identify with that pop music that has influenced her. But one of the things that I love about Billie Eilish is that it never sounds like she's trying. She doesn't, she's not, she makes it sound so effortless. And yet it's so genius. I'm not as familiar enough with the tunes to really speak on her lyrics. The lyrics that some of the stuff that I've read is just absolutely fantastic. And as I listen to these more, I'll be able to, make more of a connection to the lyrics. But the sound of her voice, it's just like she's so natural, and she just, it it's like she was born this way, which also speaks to how consistent the craftsmanship is between that early EP and this debut album. It's like I said, it sounds like she came out of the womb fully formed.
Yeah. Yeah, and then that's a gift that she can make it sound effortless because again, going back to that Vanity Fair thing about the Barbie song, she really labors in the studio to get things right, purposely not saying perfect, right? And so she works really hard for it to sound the way it is, for any song and her voice to sound the way it does, and that's a how do you say? I mean, to be able to make something look effortless is a real skill.
This is an adorable picture, by the way.
Yeah.
I really wanted to like find photos of them together. So there's
that's an
them
adorable
together.
picture too.
Yeah.
I love that one. That's cute.
And one of the
I
things
wish I had this kind of relationship with my brother.
Yeah. One of the things that I can say about what I've watched of her live is that what I saw was at a festival that was large, so it might have been that one in England that everybody goes to. But she can pull off her material and also get the crowd going, because you kind of wonder, well, some of this stuff's kind of whispery and some of this stuff is kind of really down, but she can do that and be how do you say, true to the vibe of the tune, and they get a whole group, like a whole huge crowd at a festival, up and jumping up and down. It was really interesting because I when I didn't know what to expect when I was watching live footage of her. It was like, is it kind of like moody and they only go on in the dark, but she's there in the middle of the day. I think it's Glastonbury, and she's just like a totally great front person in terms of getting the crowd into it. Not that they needed a whole lot of encouragement, but it was cool.
Yeah,
that
because her tonality to her voice is very kind of muted, at least in the music that she records.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of soft and breathy.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see her in a small club. I would love to be able to see her just in a small, intimate club. That would be really cool.
If she did that, good luck getting tickets. Yeah, so one, I have been trying to like look up things on the side here just in regard of, things regarding the album and all that. I was correct on the Logic thing, which feels like a weird vindication for me. So
there you go.
But one of the things I wanted to talk about was how much listening to this album from front to back, I kind of feel like I can hear their writing style in a weird way. There's a lot of lyrical overlap between the songs.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. Like you'll hear the same lines or the same lines just done slightly differently. And it's kind of weird to like juxtapose it with like how a lot of times the songs like will switch halfway through. Like a lot of them feel like they have a bridge breakdown, but then they never go back to where they were before. And it will just be a complete switch of sound. And so it makes me wonder about how they wrote the album and if it was done in little chunks. I know that they said they didn't like writing this album because it was their debut album and they had to deal with record labels and they had to like go in and talk to people and get approval on things, and they didn't enjoy that process at all, which is why they recorded the entire album in Phineas's bedroom.
Well,
it is an interesting songwriting style. It feels like they wrote it in small chunks and then pieced them together.
I don't know if this is along the lines of what you're saying, but I think this is a concept album, especially with the last track, the way it's pulling in snippets from a bunch of the songs from previous. And I mean that in the nicest way possible, because saying you were doing a concept album back when I was growing up was kind of a diss. But It's maybe short of like a full-on obvious concept album, but all the songs are great and they stand on their own, but there's a lot of sharing between, right? Whether it's lyrics or melodic information. And maybe it just might be because that last tune is just kind of brilliant and how it sort of all ties it up into a bow and you feel like you've listened to an album, you know? And I think anybody who hasn't listened to this album in its totality from beginning to end in order is missing out on a big part of the beauty of this, at least to me, because I do think the album has a concept. I do think it holds together as a whole like a 70s or 80s album would. And it's kind of maybe not concept with a capital C, but concept with a lowercase c, sort of subtly executed.
Sorry, trying to find
Your mileage
slides.
may vary, you may not agree.
Yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily like from start to finish. It definitely is an album of singles. I mean, you can see the long list of singles that were released from it, but it does feel like an album that was coherently written in a single sitting, or not a single sitting, but like they were all written at the same time with the same state of mind, as opposed to writing a song here and there and then compiling them together in an album. And I think it definitely has like a very solid start and end that ties it together. But like when I think of concept albums, I think about like an edge and flow. And I feel like this album maybe does that, but I don't know if it's as on purpose as like a concept album or
Yeah. And it may not be on purpose at all, but I still had that feeling and I still thought it was really wonderful.
I think that the songs on it that weren't released as singles definitely are worth listening to. And I think that it's worthwhile to listen to the entire album just for that. Like a lot
Yeah,
of times when we listen to like modern artists, you don't think about the in-between tracks. They're just kind of there. But I think my favorite song on this album is I Love You, which wasn't released as a single. And I don't know when the first time I heard it was. Sorry, trying to figure out where I would have heard it from.
Again, going to my Taylor Swift comparison. When I listen to the albums that I've listened to her, it feels like she's trying to hit every single ball out of the park. Everything's got to be a pop single, and it seems to me like Phineas and Billie Eilish are not trying. It doesn't sound like they're trying to write pop hits. Taylor always sounds like she's trying to write a pop hit. They just sound like they're writing songs, and they just happen to be consistently good songs that work well as singles. I don't know. I find it fascinating. I find it fascinating that we're talking about a contemporary pop artist who has just absolutely blown me away, because I never ever expected that.
Well, I'm glad you like somebody recently.
Yeah. Well, she sounds extremely original to me.
Yeah, she plays to her strengths. And yeah, I think that's really what it is. If I had only ever seen photos of her, I mean, to go back to this photo of them, I feel like I wouldn't expect the sound that they come up with.
Yeah.
So yeah, she has an absolutely amazing voice. They know how to utilize it. Phineas knows how to highlight her voice. The tracks are extremely minimalist. I have listened to some of his solo stuff, and it has some kind of the same vibe, but it's not as minimal. But I haven't really explored a lot of the things that he's like written for other people. I know that he had his own band for a while, but that was a full band. So
I think they sound perfect together. I listen to these songs and I can't I don't subdivide anything. Okay, here's what the music's doing and here's what her voice is doing. It all congeals into this one singular thing, and I'm blown away by how good it sounds. And that's with me not even having the time to penetrate the lyrics yet. Just the sound and the rhythms and the phrasing, between the two and how they feed off of one another. It all congeals into this wonderful whole. It's more than the sum of its parts.
yeah, she would get very overpowered very, very quickly. So having like this minimalist track, and like it's a lot of juxtaposition. I think one of the things that I really like in this is he kind of compresses everything. He compresses her voice into the bass in a lot of the songs. So she has like this really calming voice, and then the bass hits, and like there's almost like a weird dissonant sound because they've been chained together. And it's a lot of like weird experimentation. If that works out really well for them. They use a lot of techniques in there. It feels like they left a lot of space so that you notice that they are experimenting with things. It's not hidden away. Everything is kind of up front.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate a good bass line, and this album is not lacking in those. This is a good one to turn all the way up with your windows rolled down and roll through the town.
I think that this is the kind of album that, like, have you ever seen a mastering studio? This would reverberate the entire thing. Like,
I'm really curious as to their process and like how much input each of them has in either the melody or the lyrics, or how much collaboration do they do when they're putting together a song.
I think that it's primarily Phineas. He is the sole writer on a few of the songs, and Billie has an extra credit for quite a few of them.
So she's mostly the vocalist.
Yeah. So the way that I kind of imagine this going in my head is it's mostly Phineas coming up with the concept, and then as she sings it, because there are like a lot of like little things that she does throughout, and then so she does the vocal performance, and then they build around the other things that she does, like the little blips and what she's saying in the background and all of those things. So I kind of imagine that he wrote the song and then she sung the song and then they collaborated from there.
He's writing the lyrics too?
I think he writes most of the lyrics.
Huh.
He is the sole writer for When the Party's Over and My Strange Addiction. The rest of them have...
I love both of those songs.
Yeah.
I think I love every song on this album.
The rest of them, she is listed on as a writer as well.
Her album immediately following this, too. I also listened the hell out of that one. I haven't heard the new one yet.
I haven't listened to the new one intensely. I think I want to listen to it with like headphones on because it still has a very soft vibe for it. It's still like very minimalist. There are strings on it. which is different because I know the second album was also just Billie and Phineas as well.
So what kind of accolades have they? I see them holding, what is it, 9 Grammys here?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, sorry.
That's right. Switch the picture while we're counting.
I started switching the picture before he started counting.
No, it looks like 9.
Yeah. I thought that I had it. I do not. I have the certified sales for it, but give me a second.
They did. I was one of my questions was going to be, did he master it as well? But obviously there's a mastering engineer on there. So, and there's a mixing engineer too.
If I remember from reading correctly, he sent over some of the stems and what they had produced in the room over to their mixer. So he did the final mixing together, but not a lot. So they won Album of the Year, Best Pop Vocal Album, Best Engineered Album Non-Classical from the Grammys as the album as a whole. I think that they also got, Phineas got Producer of the Year and Best Engineered. Oh, no, that was already listed. Producer of the Year, and Billie won Best New Artist.
In what year?
This was released. So this was released in 2019. So this was from the January 2020 Grammys.
2020.
Yeah. Before everything went haywire. So it seems like they won 5 together. So I think this is their 5. They won 4 together and 1 each separately.
But that's 9.
I think there's 2. I think they're both holding 5.
So 10? Oh, I see, because they each get 1.
They each get 1.
Yeah. Now I get it.
So yeah, this album, I want to just talk
There's
about
a lot of background noise around you, Miguel.
There is?
Yeah. You've been like an accompanying soundtrack to our discussion.
I've had the mute on the whole time I was out. Sorry. All I have is a noisy chair.
Oh, well, somebody else, doors are opening somewhere.
Yeah, that might have been me before I put the mute on. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah. Newman.
I kind of just want to talk about her overnight success of putting in a song up on SoundCloud so that somebody else could listen to it. Like, what are the chances?
Right. How many artists put up a song on SoundCloud and this doesn't happen?
Yeah, it kind of just came out of nowhere. It sounds like one of those fantastical stories where like people are like, oh, if you're good enough, like you'll get noticed kind of things. And it's just like, I want to know who heard it and then passed it on to like 1 million people.
Mm-hmm. Or pass it on to the right people to get it in front of 1 million people.
Yeah.
I mean,
we are lucky that she was found.
With that level of craft, I'm not surprised that, the thing is, how did the right person find, her? I'm not surprised I wouldn't be surprised that somebody who, had some kind of power would listen to this and say, this is really cool, because it obviously is. But, I guess it's dumb luck that the right person found it. It's
Yeah.
easy to hear how good it is, I think,
So
but
it
not all
was,
of us have the power to take that good and send it out to the world.
I am convinced that the best artist that's ever existed, no one has ever listened to their music. Like it's just buried somewhere because there is like a whole level of luck to it. But I think for the SoundCloud thing, it was released on SoundCloud and existed for like a year before they released it commercially. And I do know that in that time frame, it was passed on to like Katy Perry, who said that it sounded like generic blonde girl music, and she was like, "Biggest mistake that I've ever made." But
Yeah.
like,
F you, Katie. What?
um, so yeah, Ocean Eyes is a great, fantastic song, but it's nothing like this album, where this album kind of hits you like a ton of bricks at times. Ocean Eyes is very steady in its relaxation. It hits you like some very calming waves. um, yeah, that also after releasing that, she had an injury that ended her dance career. So it is sheer luck that she made it this far.
What kind of dance? Hip hop?
Uh, Based on from what I've seen, I would guess so, but I also don't know. I mean, if she was going to do a dance routine to Ocean Eyes, I think I'm going to say contemporary. I don't know what style of dance that she specialized in. I just think it's fascinating and that something caught on overnight and actually went viral when they weren't intending for people to listen to it. And
That's
now it's
always
led
how
up
it
to
is,
this.
right? Like any major success, it's either about who you know or who knows you. Like who finds you.
Yeah.
Luck, dumb luck.
I will also say that I think that their parents are in Hollywood as well. So it's not like they came
That
up
can't
from,
hurt.
yeah, they had a little bit of help.
Oh my God. That makes me think. Have you guys seen the performance from The Lion King at the Hollywood Bowl?
Oh, the one with Kanye's daughter.
Yeah.
What's her name? Northeast, Northwest.
Northwest, yeah.
Yeah, Northwest.
Did you guys see it?
No,
Have not.
I
I've
have
only
no
heard.
idea what you're talking about.
Oh my God. Talk about nepotism babies. Like at least these guys have talent. Not to rag on Northwest. I'm sure she's a lovely kid, but
Yeah, but a lot of the debate has surrounded the fact that there were a lot of more qualified people her age
yeah.
that should have
Well,
done
and
that.
apparently the production was looking for up and comers with no name. Then why did you cast what?
I mean, Northwest isn't much of a name.
Kim Kardashian is and Kanye
No,
West.
you missed that. I'm sorry. That was a very
No.
subtle joke. That was
I
a very
got it.
subtle joke.
Dad joke alert.
Yeah, it is kind of about who you know, and you hear these stories about it, and it is very refreshing to have something interesting come out from it. It makes me want to just listen to random things on SoundCloud.
So one of my favorite random things on SoundCloud is this song called Just by Nerdren. I don't think they put out any other songs. And it is just Garrus quotes from Mass Effect set to like a what do you call it? Like a template, like a track template with beats and a little bit of music. I love it. But partially, probably mostly because I am in love with Garrus.
I mean, has the best voice.
Oh, doesn't
So,
he?
They actually did a study. This is getting incredibly off topic from this. I mean, we were talking about Billie Eilish's amazing voice, so we'll continue. We'll say that it connects that way.
See, still on topic.
They did a study on that because it turns out that like most women who play Mass Effect really like Garrus, and they were like, "Why? He's not humanoid." Like, and it came down to the voice.
Well, and his delivery. He's just so adorable. You just want to pinch his non-existent cheeks.
So don't discredit the voice. Tim has no idea. He doesn't understand.
Not a clue.
So yeah, the voice, it
makes a big difference.
It makes a huge difference. We are coming up on an hour here, so I did want to find out if anybody has any topics regarding this album or Billie Eilish or Phineas that they wanted to discuss before we sign off for the evening.
I mean, I doubt anyone who's well, actually, judging by our group, you might be watching and not really know Billie Eilish's music. So if you don't, go listen to it. It's good stuff. The album that was after this, I forget what it's called, but I can vividly see the cover in my head.
Happier Than Ever.
Was that the name? The one with the yellow.
Yeah. Happier Than Ever.
That's also a very good album.
Yeah, when she's platinum blonde.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely one of those artists where I feel like if you see a picture of her, you're going to be caught by surprise when you listen to the music.
She also never looks the same.
She never looks the same. Yes. She changes her style constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I look forward to seeing where she goes in the future. I need to give her newest album a listen.
Oh, Happier Than Ever. Oh, okay, no, I'm thinking of Don't Smile at Me.
I find it so interesting because in the circles where I have conversations, the attitude is always, oh, music today just sucks. And I'm like, I can kind of understand where that's coming from, but if you're willing to do the work, you can find, gems like this. The whole reason that I started listening to this kind of stuff was because, I started listening to Rick Beato's. He breaks down, the top 10 Spotify tracks. He does this like once every month or every 6 weeks or every 2 months or something. And, most of it he just thought was crap, but he'd find stuff where he'd hear chord changes and he'd hear non-auto-tuned vocals and stuff that he recognized as quality songwriting that harks back to, the golden age of the 70s. And I realized that I needed to start paying better attention to this because otherwise I'm just going to be listening to the same old music over and over again. And I love that, that he's managed to get me to start listening to these very rare artists that are doing something that is way different from what most of the pack in contemporary pop music is doing.
I mean, I think that's the case for all eras of time. You have a very specific thing that's happening, and then you have like stuff happening on the side that's really interesting.
Well, I mean, the big difference from when Miguel and I grew up is that there was a record label that curated what was heard on the radio. So theoretically, the best quality, best produced stuff wound up on the radio. There was a lot of crap too, but there was some curation involved. And now what you've got is you have a million artists all over the world throwing all of their shit up on Spotify. And so we now have to do the curation ourselves and find the artists who will speak to us. And it's just, it's a big chore if you've got any kind of standards in terms of quality. A lot of people will just listen to anything, but some of us, we come from a background where we appreciate good songwriting, people who put some thought into the craft, and the vast majority of the stuff that makes the top 10 on Spotify does not qualify by that standard. So if you're willing to do the work, you find stuff, like this, but there isn't anybody else who's going to do that work for you. There, the radio stations are gone. There's somebody curating playlists, but most of those playlists that I've heard just sound like, whatever mediocre shit is already there, But it took somebody saying, hey, you need to check out Taylor Swift. You need to check out, Billie Eilish. And, if you do that, then you'll find these rare gems that we're listening to.
Yeah, I had it backwards because I have it up on YouTube right now, and they're actually in reverse order. I didn't realize "Don't Smile at Me" was the EP.
Yes.
Copycat is one of my favorite songs.
I like Copycat as well. I think I did an aerial routine to it. So, Tim, you need better playlists.
I
you need to
agree.
go to different grocery stores, because I don't know what you're talking about. My entire grocery store. My husband literally has a playlist that he listens to constantly that's called grocery store music, because it's all stuff from the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not biased or anything, but I love 90s music.
Yeah, it's like, it's not contemporary. It's just very like generic, comforting music that we heard a lot when we were kids.
Yeah, no, it's not because I grew up on them. That has nothing to do with it.
I mean, I'm casually familiar with 90s music. Because
I feel like all I hear in grocery stores is 90s music. I don't know what grocery stores you're shopping at.
No, I've been thinking about this the entire call.
I go to the Ralph's in Sunland. It's it's bad. It's a lot of bad white girl hip hop.
That's a very
really bad white girl hip hop. I mean, you know what? If they would play Beyonce or something on occasion, it would probably be all right. But instead, what I'm hearing is, it's just really depressing. It's just auto-tune and God, whoever introduced quarter note triplets into hip hop, that person needs to be just murdered, because everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
It's
as a disclaimer, YouTube, we do not advocate murdering people. We are an anti-murder here at Dragonfly Arts Collective.
On that note,
I'm sorry, did I go on a rant? If you went to my grocery store, if you spent any time at my grocery store, you'd go on a rant too.
I do want to put the note out there for anybody that is still listening to us or is stuck around with us for this long. Tim needs better suggestions for music, so please suggest music in the comments here for him to listen
or
to.
on our suggestion form for our club picks.
Yeah, I also have a suggestion form, because I don't want to be responsible for picking every single album. I also want to be surprised by other people's suggestions. So, yeah, we'll be posting our next monthly picks tomorrow.
Exciting. Stay tuned.
Yeah, so thank you for joining me tonight, and I hope to discuss things with you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.